Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Rathman. I am an instructor, and I am creating this video, this class, to answer one of the most asked questions I've gotten over the years. I am a CRETS instructor and actually help write part of the program. CRETS is a program that was designed to help team leaders in real estate become better team leaders. I'm also the author and an instructor with the REPA, the Real Estate Professional Assistance class, and training assistants. It's a 2-day certification for assistants to be better at their job for working for real estate agents. I've also had a number of assistants over my 20-year career as a real estate agent, and I have worked with and brokered over agents who have hired assistants. And so I've seen all the good and the bad of assistants. And I think that as the industry moves forward, this is going to be one of our biggest saving graces, our well-trained assistants to help us make more money, have a better work-life balance, and improve our business. So I hope you enjoy this session. So let's talk about you. You are probably watching this video or taking this class because you have thought, maybe I need an assistant. Life is crazy right now. Generally, agents start thinking about getting an assistant in the middle of the summer months when they're getting these listing opportunities and the buyer inquiries are stacking up and you can't get to those inquiries from buyers to respond to fast enough to even get them the properties or convert them to future clients. And it's just going crazy and you feel spazzed out. And that's when the agents start thinking primarily about getting a real estate assistant. So let's figure out a little bit about who you are as we start to delve into what we need to do to hire the right assistant. The average real estate agent, there's 1.8 million of us, has been doing this for about 9 years. They're about 55 years of age. They do about 12 transactions a year. And we know that about 16% of real estate agents have assistants. Now, interestingly enough, if you start looking at NAR numbers, about 18 to 20% of all licensees of those 1.8 million realtors are actually doing real estate at a level that would sustain a household income. In other words, only about 20% of us are listing and selling enough to pay our bills and provide for our family. There's another 80% out there that's just barely getting through, or they're supplementing other income in their homes. And so when we see that 16% of agents have assistants, there is a correlation between the agents who are high performing and having and needing an assistant. But you can be in a mid-level performance and still be in the middle of a mess and benefit from an assistant. The assistants are going to help you make money, save time, and better utilize what you do. Now, I want you to think about this. You are a real estate agent, you're making 6 figures and you're pretty happy with that, and you're nervous about hiring an assistant or training them. There are some things we'll talk about in this session about timing and when it's right to get an assistant. And right now, if this is the point you're at and you're thinking, I need some help, now's a good time to start writing and building a plan. It's not just to go out and put out an inquiry and hopefully get some resumes back or some CVs back and say, I'm going to pick somebody to help me out, or just snag somebody off the road because they're the friend or girlfriend or boyfriend of a friend who needs a job. You need to start thinking about who you are, what you actually need, and how they're going to work. Because if they don't benefit you, if they don't bring more profit to you than cost, you're less likely to keep them. They're only going to do that if you follow some of the things we talk about in this session. And so knowing who you are is important, how you do business and what you're doing. I get it. If you're watching this, you're probably exhausted. You'll probably have a bunch of leads coming in stacked up that you're feeling guilty because you can't get to them fast enough. There's offers coming in that you can't sort through fast enough, and you're just rushing from one appointment to another. And all you want is a break. You want to be able to focus on one thing and do it well. You've taken a class where they've given you some great ideas to enhance your business, and you're thinking, God, if only I had time to sit down and actually take advantage of those things, think about the money I could make and the lifestyle I could have, and I could finally afford that vacation. I get it. You're exhausted and you need a break. You need a work-life balance, because a work-life balance is essential to longevity in a business. Those people who've been doing this 20, 40 years, at some point in their career, found a healthy work-life balance. You need to be able to take a vacation and breathe and not have to glue to your phone. Even if you have people covering for you, many of you are still finding yourself answering questions and taking time away from your family. And let's face it, if you're at that dinner table and the phone rings and you're there with the kids and you pick up that phone, you have sent a message to them that phone call, your job, is more important than they are. And it could be a significant other, it could be children, it could be anybody in your life. You have the right to have a healthy work-life balance. And so having an assistant often solves that need and fulfills that right. The success of that assistant, however, is solely on your shoulders. Again, I've had a number of assistants over the years. I have one now. I have worked with agents, helping them hire and train and develop their assistants. And as I mentioned earlier, I teach classes to assistants. And so I know where the breakage points are. And we're going to try to solve some of those for you in this class, giving you at least the general concepts in which you can have a successful relationship and properly hire an assistant in the first place. But again, it's largely going to depend on you. For so many years now, I have talked to agents who have said, yep, I hired an assistant. It didn't work out. It was so much work and they could never get things done and I couldn't find any good help. And the agents very often aren't taking personal responsibility for what they need to do to have a success plan for both themselves and their assistant. So the question is, are you prepared for an assistant? And there's a number of factors that go on that, and I'm going to explain them as we go through this session. And being prepared for an assistant isn't just financial. Yes, that's a big part of it. And yes, I think you should have a pretty substantial amount of savings for their salary in the bank account. Matter of fact, I think you should have all of their salary for the first year in a bank account to get you started, because it takes about 6 to 12 months for an assistant to get so proficient that they can make money for you. Until then, you are paying for training and you are paying for development and you're paying for them to get in the role that you really want designed for them. But there's more than just the payroll. The big part of it is, are you in the mindset of being a business owner now? The unfortunate reality is, for most of the real estate agents we train across the country, they did not enter the business with any type of business experience. They may have managed some people in a mid-level in some industries, but they never were the employer. They never had that sole responsibility of making sure someone is making a living and that they are governing them and they are managing them in such a way to have a good work relationship. So, is your business organized? Now, yes, when you hire an assistant, part of their job will be to organize it for you. That's certainly a reality that we all face. But is it easy for them to jump in? Are there checklists created? Are there a system of tools and resources that are up to date and work effectively for you? These are some things you're going to want to start getting pre-prepared before you even have an assistant walk in the door. Are you running it like a business means, are you running it like a chief executive officer? Do you have a mission and vision statement? Do you know what your values are? And are they all written down? Because whomever you hire needs to know what your guiding light is so they can follow it. And they won't know unless you have put it in writing and made it available to them. So let's talk about some things that will help you out here. Timing is very important. For a lot of real estate agents, they tend to look at getting an assistant at the moment of most stress. It's the middle of July. You've got 3 new listings coming up. You don't even know how to write descriptions for them because there's so much going on. You got another inquiry. It's just one more person who reached out and said, hey, can you come talk to me about putting my house on the market? Or, hey, we really want to see properties this weekend, and you're going crazy. And of course you say yes because of your client and you want to help them. In the interim, when are you going to find time to order photos or put a listing description or put a home flyer or brochure together? You went to that one class where there were so many great marketing ideas. You're like, that's great. Now just give me somebody to execute on them so I can build my business better. You're in the middle of a mess. And I'm going to tell you that hiring somebody in the middle of chaos is only going to yield more chaos. The most successful relationships I've seen between assistant and agent have been when that assistant was hired during a downtime. Around the fall market, when you're starting to taper off, and yes, you're probably still busy enough to have income coming in for you that you could help pay for salaries and take care of your household income. But it's also time when you can actually sit down and work with somebody to make them the assistant they need to be before the market gears up for the craziness of the spring and summer markets. So around fall is the best time to start looking at bringing someone on. In between, if you're going crazy and it's in the middle of July, this is a good time to start referring people out, because if you do a bad job with that client, it could impact you on referrals and other things in the future. Better to refer them to somebody you have a standing relationship with in your company so that you can focus on the right number of clients to do a really good job across the board. Start putting feelers out, start running ads for an assistant, and then bring them on when the market starts to slow down around the fall time. Now, some of you are in resort markets, or some of you are in crazy markets where you're just 110% all the time. Find the slowest possible time, if that exists for you, to bring on this assistant. And then we're going to look at having a training plan. Now, again, I know how this goes for most of us. You have the best of intention. The morning before, you brought on this person, and then you've hired them, and it's their first day, and you've written out what you want them to do. You have laid it all out clearly. And then they come in, and you're going to sit with them, and on Tuesday morning or Monday morning, you have broken down and scheduled the time for them. So on Monday morning, they come in, and you've time blocked the day so you can sit down and start training them. And you sit down, and your friend comes in the door with a cup of coffee and telling you about the office gossip that you didn't really want to get involved in, but it's just too good not to listen to and share. And you go, I don't know. And by the time they've walked off, you've burned 45 minutes of your day. And so they leave, and now you're sitting here with an assistant who is still waiting to learn how to turn on a computer, or where your checklists are, what a transaction looks like. Because even if that assistant has been an agent, the probability that they don't know how to perform as a top agent is there, because by virtue of the fact of them being an assistant. If they were a top agent, they would likely be an assistant. And so you're going to have to train them sometimes from the ground up. Now, again, there are programs out there like the Real Estate Professional Assistant and REPA certification that NAR has and REBI has. But maybe you don't have time to send them there, or maybe you're going to send them there later and you need the right now training. Now your gossip friend has left, and you're sitting there, and the phone rings, and it's, oh my gosh, it's that home inspection that you've been waiting for for 2 days. You've got to take this right now. And so you jump on the call and you take that right now. And that's a 30-minute conversation. And then you got to call your clients right now. And now it's lunchtime, and that assistant's still sitting there. And so now you got a lunch appointment. So you got to run out, and you just tell them like, hey, just hold tight. Go watch a video on YouTube about being a real estate agent. I'll be here. That is certainly setting you and that person up for frustration and failure. Over and over again, when I have talked to, interviewed, and worked with agents who have had failed relationships or failed assistants, it's because they start on day one throwing stuff at them without spending the time actually training them and developing them. Now, see, you have years of experience. Maybe you've been doing this for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. You know better than anybody that the day you started, you didn't know anything. Pre-licensing taught you how to pass a licensing test. You didn't understand what the MLS was. You didn't know what well and septic was. All this stuff you've got in your brain now. It's impossible to just do a brain dump in 1, 2, or 3 months. It took you years to accumulate that information. Yet so many agents expect their assistants to have that same level of knowledge in days or maybe a month. It doesn't work that way. You're going to be constantly pouring into this person reminders, and they're going to learn as they go about part of their job. It is the nature of what we do. You can't expect it in 6 months, but you can fast forward that with a pretty solid plan. Now, your training plan can be a variety of things. I think that the training plan should involve attending broker meetings, going to classes with you or on your behalf if they are able to. Anything you can get your office administrator or your assistant into should be something that you place them there. So whether it's association classes or things. Now, CE is not clearly something they need, but marketing classes, webinars, if your company offers a library of training, get your assistant and say, I want you to watch these things today and report back to me what you learned. You have to have a written business plan or training plan for this person so you know what to expect. We call it onboarding. When you hire a new employee or you bring a new agent to a company, you're onboarding. And onboarding has a written plan. You need a checklist of what you anticipate them learning and how long they should be getting it and what the next steps are. And yes, there's going to be stuff you didn't think about putting in your plan that you're going to throw at them as they go on. But you need to have a written plan. You and that person need to know what is expected and in what order you're going to be covering those things to make sure you don't miss anything. Next, you need a hiring plan. You need to know, how do I find the right person? What do I have to pay them? And how do I take care of the financial part of being an employer now? And when do they start? We talked about timing earlier. And is this a long-term relationship? And what about their time off? And how do we handle things like vacation? So here's a couple things. Start with this. First of all, develop an assistant persona. Any good real estate agent has a consumer persona. You know roughly the average age of your target audience, what they do for a living, what they do for recreation, what kind of houses they would feel comfortable in, what their income is. Do the same thing for an assistant. If I were going to hire an assistant, you got to write this stuff down. If it's in your head, it doesn't work. I don't care who you are. I know everybody says it's all in my head. I got it right here. There's something about the power of writing it down and scripting it out that helps you. And so I want to do an assistant persona. Roughly what age are they going to be and what background might they have based on the amount of income I'm going to pay or whatever. I will give you some caution. Remember, if you're a realtor under Article 10, your hiring practices are subject to the Realtor Code of Ethics, Article 10 of the Fair Housing Code. And so things like gender and race and religion are all protected classes that you cannot consider when you're hiring. You need to be hiring somebody who's going to do the job. So when you're writing your assistant persona, don't put, a male between the age of 25 and 55 or 25 and 50. You're going to be looking for someone who can help you out. And we'll give you a pro tip here. A lot of times I hear agents saying, I'm just looking for a young person to help me out. I just need somebody to do my marketing for me or someone who's good with technology. There's some pros and cons for that. If you're hiring a teenager, they have no real life experience. They often don't know how to work with people. They aren't generally very good at keeping up deadlines. They don't handle stress because they haven't had experience. They may not be, the fact that they can do a TikTok video doesn't mean that they know anything about marketing. They just know how to create a video and post it. That's not the same. So you want to look at the totality of what your needs are and start to build what kind of education would you like them to have. You want them to have a bachelor's? That's going to cost you a little bit more than if you have someone who maybe doesn't have any college experience. Will they be able to work remote, or do you need them right there in the office with you? Or maybe they're working in your home office. You get to decide what those things are. You also want to look at the personality. Now, I think this is an important part here. The importance to personality, what happens is a lot of real estate agents I want to hire somebody just like me. They have to be driven. They have to be good with people. They have to be da-da-da-da. And here's the thing. You probably want to hire somebody who's opposite of you. If they're just like you, first of all, they're going to drive you crazy, right? As much as you may love yourself, you won't love yourself if you're not yourself. That's just the reality of it. The things that irritate you about other people are very often some of the same problems we have amongst ourselves. For example, we just will give an example. We'll just move on. The personalities are important. But if you have someone who's completely driven and they're great with people and they're great in front of them, they may not be grounded enough to be an assistant because they're going to be just like you. So you love going to networking events and hanging out with people and passing out business cards and being the life of the party. If you have an assistant who's the same way, it might be fun for a while, but there's some trade-offs for that. If they're the life of the party, they very often aren't that organized, and they may not be that great with paperwork or attention to detail or they may be running around the office sharing gossip with everybody because they're so hyper social. You want somebody who maybe is opposite of you. Maybe if you're hyper, you want somebody more subdued. If you're not great with paperwork, you want somebody who's better at paperwork, but you don't need them to be out generating business for you. Now, again, this comes in stages. Maybe your next hire is a marketing person and you do want those things. But personality is an important part. You also want to have a written job description. It is important on day one for them to know exactly what you're expecting of them and what they should expect from you. The written job description is part of your advertisement for this position so that before they even submit, they know what kind of person you're looking for. You need to decide if you're looking for someone who's licensed or unlicensed, and there's definitely pros and cons to both. An unlicensed person is less likely to go out and want to list and sell, but they are also, if they are licensed, able to go show properties and conduct open houses for you, but they're probably going to cost you some more. And then there's compensation things we'll cover in just a bit about that you need to consider between licensed and unlicensed. The next is the advertising policy. You need to have in writing, first of all, checklist of what they're doing. And second of all, you need to have in writing what the limits are. What is the process that they need to go through if they're creating ad pieces for you or marketing assets of who gets to oversee it and what goes on. But there's a second part to the advertising policy. You need to have a written policy of how you're going to be putting information out that you're looking for this. In most states, even if you're in a right to work state, you, the employer, still are now an employer. That means you're going to be bound by certain rules about advertising. And again, I don't know every state's rules, so you'll need to know. What information can you ask for? What can't you? What questions can you ask during an interview? What can't you? Again, you're an employer, and a lot of agents, because they've never been in that position, play it fast and loose. And they'll ask people like, oh, okay, so you're engaged. Well, are you planning on having kids anytime soon? That's an inappropriate question. You need to ask them about only the things that relate to the job at hand, not whether they plan on raising a family or whether they're moving to the military or any of those things. You check with your broker to see if they have any guidelines about licensing law or hiring laws and policies in the company or for you. And then I encourage you to look at tools like 16 Personalities. This is a free personality test. You need to take it for yourself first because you need to know who you are. And then you're going to ask every candidate that you're seriously considering before you're hiring them to do the 16 Personalities test. The 16 Personalities test, again, it's free, will allow you to go and look and see what kind of people they are. Are they analytics? Are they diplomats? Are they sentinels? Are they explorers? And this pretty much breaks down, especially if you're a Myers-Briggs person, they're INTG or INFG or ISFJ rather, roles, but it gives you it in a much more layman's terms. So you can figure out what you're really looking for. And what their pros and their cons are. And again, in 16 Personalities, it breaks it down for you into these categories. Because honestly, if you're looking for an assistant, it's unlikely for you to want to hire someone who's a debater. You don't want to hire somebody who's constantly challenging you the best way to do everything. But you also don't want somebody who's not going to bring new ideas to the table. So someone right in the middle is probably good. 16 Personalities is a great tool for deciding who you are and what you're looking for. Next, you need to consider your brokerage policies. What does your broker, if anything, have in writing? Now, in almost in every state and almost in every province, the broker has a say of whomever is going to be engaging consumers, which means the broker probably has the right to say yes or no as to who you're going to hire. And they may have policies in place about what that looks like. So for example, in my company, the broker does have the right to say yes or no to someone before you hire them. We also do background checks on every single person who comes in to work with clients. Now, a DUI from 20 years ago or shoplifting from 20 years ago is probably not something that's going to make us change our mind about whether that person can be hired or not. But, bank fraud or check fraud or something like that, or stealing or larceny, drug convictions in the past 3 years may have an impact on whether or not we allow that person to come into the company, because we need to know what the risk is and whether we're willing to accept that risk. Your brokerage may also have policies about what it may cost to have someone in the office. Maybe they charge you the more humans on your team, and it may change the category of awards that you would qualify for. And I know a lot of agents are worried about awards. Let me just say this. Your consumers don't care about the rewards nearly as much as you think they do. Your peers don't care about the awards nearly as much as you think they do. And to elect not to get help when you need it, to make more income and build a better business, because it may impact getting an award once a year that very few people care about, is a horrible business decision. You should be looking at finding someone to help you have a better work-life balance and increase your business year over year. The brokerage policy is going to have some impact on that you need to be aware of, but it doesn't mean it should be the end all be all. And if you're the broker who absolutely says you can't have assistants, maybe that's a business choice too. Maybe you need to look at a firm who may promote and provide even training for that. For example, in our firm, I do have once a year a 2-day training for all the unlicensed assistants, or even licensed assistants for that matter, who can come to the class and we can help train them on behalf of the agent. So make sure you know what assets are out there. Also ask your broker if your assistant, licensed or not, is permitted to attend company meetings and trainings on your behalf or with you as a partner, so that you're never left behind. If you're super busy and you're out doing stuff working with clients, you can't make it to the office meeting, is it okay for your assistant to go in your place? And here's one thing I have found out as both a broker and as a trainer. Those assistants usually catch more, get interested in more, and execute on more for tools and resources presented to the company than real estate agents do. And so put in that agent or that assistant, and yes, you may be paying for 1 or 2 hours for them to go to training. They're going to come back with a lot more than you probably would, because you're busy checking your phone for contracts coming in and all the rest. And so Make sure your broker has some type of has allocated some resources for an assistant. What tools do they have for you as a team, and what does that do to impact your income? And does it change your split, or in your cap program, does it raise your cap if you have more than one human working with you? There's a variety of things to look at. So ask the broker for the written policy about it. Maybe sit down with the broker. They can probably also help you cultivate a persona for who you need to hire. And if they're good coaches, if these brokers are trained and they're CRB certified or whatever, they've been through training to help coach you more effectively, they'll be able to walk you through things you may not have thought about when you did your own SWOT analysis that could speak into your career and help you choose someone better. And then we go to salary. How do we pay these people? This is probably the number one question I get asked across the board. And especially right now, I'm recording this in September of 2022. We are kind of on the tail end of what was called the Great Resignation. And still, I see remnants everywhere I go of people having a challenging time finding help. Most Americans now want a 9-to-5 job, and they want enough money where they can have a healthy living and not stress about it, and maybe a vacation once a year. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to provide for your assistant a lifestyle or an income that is going to be enough for them to pay every bills just on the income alone. It's just not the nature of what we do. They're clerical assistants after all. But having a job that is not retail, not fast food, not working for a horrible boss may be exactly what people are looking for. But it's always going to come down to compensation. And so we have to look at how we're going to pay them. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the first thing I suggest is having at least half, if not all, of whatever the total salary you're going to pay them in a savings account. You don't want to hire somebody only 30 days later realize, oh, it's getting into the fall season. I don't have as many listings to go through. I need to let you go. That's a horrible thing to do. But if you got at least 6 months worth of their salary, that's plenty of time to be paying them until they get to the point where they can be giving you more opportunities, whether they're helping you market your brand or whether they're helping you engage new consumers or just helping you convert leads that are coming in from whatever variety of sources you have, maintaining your CRM. These are all lost opportunities. And so I want to talk just real briefly about this. A well-performing assistant should very clearly, once trained, be able to increase notably your income well beyond what their salary is, assuming, of course, you're paying a good salary. And so I want to have about 6 months saved up because I am investing in the future of my business. Most of us are not sitting down working our CRM every day, whereas an assistant would. We may not be performing the best on our marketing campaigns or promoting ourselves well on social media, whereas an assistant would help you with those things. Also remember, every hour you spend on something is an investment of your own time and money. So let's say that you're making $100,000 this year and you do the math and realize from the hours you work, you're worth about $45 an hour. And so you're hiring an assistant who maybe you're paying half that to, let's say $20 an hour, depending on your marketplace. We'll get into that in a minute. So you're saving $20 an hour by you not sitting at the computer for 6 hours just doing MLS entry and transaction management and all those clerical things that can be automated through a well-versed assistant or well-trained assistant. You could be out prospecting. There are so many ways in which a well-trained and well-prepared assistant can make you money that the salary in the beginning is considered an investment if you're having a particularly good year. And let me just step back here. If you're at a point where saying, I can't save, let's say the salary is going to be $35,000 a year. And I'm telling you to get $18,000 in an account before you hire someone. You go, I don't have $18,000 to invest. If I save for 3 months, I wouldn't be able to do that. Then you're not in a position to be able to pay somebody and put them on salary. It's just the reality. You're going to have to power through until you can save up enough, or you're not ready. Because over and over again, I've seen people pulling an assistant thinking on day one it's going to make more money. It doesn't. It takes time. You also have to factor in paid time off, just like any employer. How many days a year are they going to get for sick leave? And how many days a year are they going to get for vacation leave? What policy do you need to put in place to ensure that that they're not taking time off when you're taking time off? Because that defeats the purpose if you're both on vacation the first week after school lets out. So Do they need to give you 30 days notice? And what's expected of them during vacation? Are they still going to have their phone with them and all these other things? You also need to talk about exclusivity. Are they permitted to work for more than one real estate agent, or can they only work for you? Most of the healthiest assistant positions I've seen are solely yours. They're managing your calendar and they're managing your marketing and they're handling your transactions. It doesn't leave a lot of room because you don't want them to say, well, I couldn't get to your marketing today because the other person I'm working for is demanding of me. Plus you have confidentiality and cross communication issues. So generally they're going to be exclusively to you, and generally you're going to want them full time. Are there bonuses and incentives? And are those bonuses and incentives lawful? So let me just be really clear here. In almost every state, as a matter of fact, I don't know an exception to this. I've taught in almost every state and had these discussions everywhere. Generally speaking, if they are unlicensed, you cannot incentivize them per transaction or bonus. Only licensed assistants can get a portion of the commission coming in. Now, you can create incentives and bonuses that are well defined. So you start the year and go, hey, assistant, if we close $10 million this year, there's a $2,500 bonus for you. For every 10 million we close, there's a $5,000 bonus to you. The bonus incentives cannot be related to an individual transaction. They can't get a portion of the commission. They can't get perceived as being in receipt of any money or thing of value by transaction unless they're licensed. So if they're unlicensed, it's better to have goals set up. And so if you're ever challenged by the IRS or anybody else, there was clear achievements that were reached, and then it triggered the bonuses, not each transaction. And always, always, always check with your broker about the legalities and company policy that may affect those bonuses and incentives. You also want to know what tools and resources you have. So not all the resources that you have are going to permit you to just give your username and password to that person, nor do you always want to do that. So your multiple listing service, for example, may require that assistants have their own access and a different fee be put in. And you need to calculate the expense of having an assistant as well. Are you providing a laptop? Are you going to provide their phone? Are you going to provide workspace for them? What about software licenses? You should sit down and write, what tools do I know I'm using that I want my assistant to use? And what tools would I like to use that I would have my assistant use? And what are the rules? Can you share login information? In most cases you can for marketing tools and other things. But again, there are some tools and resources. MLS is the first one that comes to mind, where they may have to have their own access and their own cost. And then lastly, what is their employment status? There are two options here for you. There is independent contractor and there is employee. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is that agents misclassify their assistants and they pay them as if they were a independent contractor. And the thought being, I'm going to pay them some money. They have to go do their own taxes and whatever. But in a lot of states, there is the right for people who are not properly classified to sue their employers for loss of pay or uncompensated work. So here's a couple of things. The IRS has basically 5 litmus tests to see if the person that you have hired is an employee or an independent contractor. An employee means you have to do withdrawals and taxes and treat them like an employee. If they're an independent contractor, you can just throw money at them and it's up to them to go report their money, their earnings as an independent contractor. Some states will require them to have an LLC or be incorporated to have some type of entity to do business. And here's what I've seen happen. Actually, I was teaching this class at the National Association of Realtors a couple of years ago, and a gentleman came up and he said, hey, I just want you to know, I had an employee, an assistant for 3 years. I paid her as an independent contractor. She didn't take care of her own taxes. And so when IRS came after her, and she had to pay all these taxes and retro and all penalties and stuff, she sued me for misclassifying her. He says, and I lost the lawsuit because it cost me $120,000 to satisfy all this, to pay back her taxes plus her time and effort, the legal fees and all the rest. He goes, it would have been infinitely less money to have done withholdings and all the things I was supposed to do as employer. So here's what IRS does. When we're determining whether the individual is an employee or an independent contractor, we look at the degree of control exercised by the alleged employer, the extent of the relative investments of the alleged employee or employer, to the employer, the degree to which the employee's opportunities for profit and loss is determined by the employer, the skill and initiative required in performing the job, and the permanency of the relationship. So let's start here. You're a real estate agent, you're hiring an assistant. Most of you are going to say, I want it in MLS, I want it this way, I want these pictures in this order, I want you to use this system to get it done, I want you to use this email system to communicate with me, I want you to use Slack for our internal communications, etc. And that's all great. And looks to me like you've got a great deal of control over this person. I need you to come in from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I'm going to pay you a salary. That's great. Or I'm going to pay you as an independent contractor and I need you to be available whenever. That's questionable. So the degree of control you have is pretty high. So already, just by the degree of control, we're clearly in the employer position. It is unlikely you're going to go to an assistant and say, hey, I want to market a listing and it needs to go into MLS. And then you have no say in what format they use and when it goes in and how they write it and what the description is and what photos are ordered, what system they use to get it. Generally, you are very specific about what needs to be done. Next step is the extent of the relative investment of the alleged employee and employer. In most cases, you are providing the laptop, you're providing the access to services, you're paying for the accounts that they need from MLS to whatever, to Canva for marketing, whatever it is. And so you probably have a pretty good investment in this person. That means they're an employee. The next is the degree to which the employee's opportunity to profit and loss is determined by the employer. Well, your two options here are either A, you work for me and me alone, because I don't want you sharing information. I don't want to share you with other people. I need you to be available when I need you. That exclusivity, again, puts you in the employer category for a employee, not an independent contractor. Independent contractor is going to say, I'm going to go work for 10 agents because I got the skill sets and tools and resources, and I'll do this limited thing for them and be available to everybody. You're probably an employer. They're probably an employee rather, not an independent contractor. The skill and initiative required for performing the job. Again, most of these people will be doing things at your training and your discretion. It is not like they came in ready to be the best marketing person in the world or the best administrator in the world. That one may be 50-50. Maybe they are trained and experienced. And then the permanency of the relationship. Independent contractors by default are not temporary. In other words, I need you for the next 2 months to help me because that's my vacation time and I just need you to do some basic admin stuff. Maybe that's an independent contractor. But when you hire someone, most of you are investing in, like I said, training for months before they're fully have the efficacy you want to be left alone and trusted to do the job. And so if you're investing that time, you want them for a period of years, as long as you can have them work for you. It's not a temporary thing. That means they're an employee. Almost every single, I would probably say every single person I have talked to as an agent has an employee versus an independent contractor by IRS standards. So what you don't want to have happen is IRS come after you and or the person you hired for any type of unlawful conduct when compensating and paying them. Now, if that's freaking you out and you're getting a little bit of stress right here going, I don't want to have to deal with payroll, there's an easy answer for you. There are several tools out there that you can use, like ADP.com, where you pay them the money and they go ahead and break it down and withhold taxes and pay your employee a salary, and it's all automated for you. You just give them the money. And there is a fee for that. That would be something you would calculate into how much this person is going to cost you with all the other tools and resources. Would be how would a system like, I'm saying ADP, there may be 1,000 other ones out there that you can look at. That's the one that I'm most familiar with. And it is a couple bucks a month for you to pay them to handle your employee status for you, so that you don't have to get in hot water and you don't have to spend time figuring out all these other things. And then you're left with figuring out, what do I pay them? Like, what's a fair salary in the market we're in for an employee? An independent contractor being something that is unlikely to be the classification. I like using both salary.com and indeed.com. Now you can go look at a bunch of different systems out there for see who's hiring, but salary.com allows you to go into your area, type out the type of work that's going to be done. And real estate assistant is one of the results that come up in a lot of marketplaces. And salary.com will give you an estimate of what a salary would be for an assistant, a real estate assistant in the area. Indeed.com is where you're going to look and see what are people actually advertising for. Now, if you're in a fairly small market, you might not see a lot of ads for real estate assistants on there. You can also look at historical data to see what in the past 6 months people have charged. It's like looking for comps when you're trying to price a home. So maybe you go to the next biggest city near you or county near you and look and see what advertisements are currently being done for real estate assistants and clerical positions. And Indeed.com will tell you kind of a baseline of where you are. So between Salary.com and Indeed.com, you'll get a feel for what the salary costs are in your area. And then you have another consideration. Maybe you do all that and go, man, I really need some help. But I don't want to deal with all the stuff you've been talking about through here, at least not now. I need somebody to give me some help now who's already trained and capable of doing it. And then eventually I want to work my way up to graduating to having a full-time or even part-time person in place at my beck and call. You may be looking at an option for virtual assistants that's much better than hiring somebody right now. If you are in the middle of summer and going, I just need somebody right now. Virtual assistants through services that are out there are sometimes all over the country. And the virtue is that most of them are working for other real estate agents out there, and they are able to bring what they've learned working with other real estate agents to you to make you more efficient and maybe have the right tools and things set up so that you know what to look for when you're ready to hire an in-person assistant. But there's also a limit to what they can do. Virtual assistants are good for doing administrative work, maybe light marketing pieces for you, but they're not going to be uniquely yours. They're not going to do the job exactly the way you want it done. And very often their scope is going to be enough to get you by, but probably not enough to advance your career. So one of the tools that I would look at is myoutdesk.com. This is a really good service. It's very affordable. And again, they have a list of exactly what services they'll do for you, and they're going to stick just to that. Now you don't have to worry about salary or being an employee or anybody else and this is again good for the early stages of your stress, that you're getting successful in your business enough that you know you need help. But it isn't normally a long-term solution for everybody. But there's also a model that I like. I've seen a lot of agents use where they do for a period of time have both an in-person and virtual assistant. So in other words, if you're really busy, your in-person assistant is handling paperwork and transaction management, doing stuff for the broker, data entry from MLS and CRM and the rest. And the virtual assistant supplements them by doing marketing campaigns and putting other pieces together, get your transaction prepared or whatever, maybe get you through the summer until you can afford a second assistant or if you need one, or anything. So there's a number of variations where things like My Outdesk and other real estate virtual assistance programs kind of help patch that position you're in now until you can save up for the in-person person, or to supplement them if it's getting crazy busy and you just aren't ready to hire a second person. So a number of options for virtual assistants. Now let's talk about some tools that you may consider when you're hiring somebody, some collaborative practices and some tools. Collaborative practices are very important. And again, I find a lot of real estate agents, their frustration with having an assistant is that you're making hallway decisions. You're walking in between appointments and your assistant's like, hey, I need you to look at this. Is this what you want this to do? Or, hey, I wanted to change this thing in the way we process contracts. Can you look at it? And you're either going, not right now, I'm too busy. And then 6 months go by and you missed opportunities to do something better and more effectively. Or you're making quick decisions that you probably won't remember and may not be the best for your team. The concept of being collaborative is that this person, although they're working for you, if you've chosen the right person, is going to supplement and add and complement you. And not compliment and saying, you're so pretty. When you walk in, I'm sure you're beautiful, but compliment you in that they're going to have time to look at things differently and look at things more effectively and look at new ideas that you didn't have time to. They're doing this every day. So collaborative practices is making sure you're spending time making good decisions. One of the tools I found really good for this is weekly stand-ups. Now, the concept is that you are literally standing up. And so you're an assistant, and it may seem awkward at first, it gets better. People who are standing up tend to not ramble as much. They tend to be more succinct and be more on target about this. There's no devices in anybody's hands. There's no phones being answered. You're standing up, and in the beginning of this team, or maybe it's just you and this assistant, you're standing it up to just say, okay, let's go down the run through. We got 6 active listings and 4 active buyers. Where are we on each one? All right, what else do we talk about? And doing this once a week gives time for the two of you to add to a list of things that are important. And so you're getting undivided attention, even if you only do it 15 minutes once a week or 30 minutes on Mondays when you come in. You're not talking about weekend stuff. You're not getting caught up on who went to what concert. You're solely fixated on what you need to do this week and making sure everybody's on the same page and decisions are being made and new concepts are being delivered. And then when you're done, you can sit down. My experience has been texting you something, emailing you something doesn't get the full attention. I don't feel like I can fully explore it. If I fully explored an email, you're not going to read all of it because it's too many words. Having a dialogue and getting that face-to-face once a week is very, very important. Also, we want to have collaborative tools that are based on some other very basic principles. First of all, to effectively have a team, you can't be paper bound. Some of you love those file folders, love printing out things, love having backups of all this stuff. We are decades beyond where you need to have things printed out. And it's not just because we're saving the earth. It's not just because it's stacking up papers in the office that you have to go burn 3 years later. It's because you need to have something that you can pull up on your phone and look at. So your assistant is adding things to a cloud-based system, or you're using SkySlope to manage your transactions. And both of you can pull up things in real time on your phone when you need it. Calling your assistant when you're 2 p.m. and you're calling your assistant to go, hey, can you go pull up 123 Main Street and tell me when well and septic is supposed to be done? It's such a tremendous waste of time for both them and you're paying for that waste of time. If you and your assistant are using paperless platforms, using cloud-based tools, then it's very easy for you to open up what you need to get on your phone and see that the status of that transaction is right there. It is 2 seconds to pull it up and see the notes that are made by both of you. This is important that you, the agent, also make notes and keep track of it in there, as opposed to the picking up the phone call and disrupting the workflow that you have going on. Remember, we are not multitaskers, and you'll interview people who go, I'm a multitasker. No, having your focus on more than one thing at a time means you're only doing 50% attention to detail or 50% of the job. And so every time you call your assistant, you're breaking their train of thought, and you're reducing the quality and efficacy of the output you're looking for them to have. So everything should be paperless. All the notes, the transactions should all be updated in one platform. There should be very little reason for both of you to have to stop what you're doing several times a day to get caught up on things. I also know there's a lot of people who try to do shared email accounts or blind copy me and everything you send out. It's such an ineffective way, but it also can be damaging to you. There is something psychological when we open up our app and see a bazillion unread emails. Maybe for the first month, you want your assistant to blind copy you on everything that she's sending out or he's sending out until you get comfortable with what they're doing. And after that, you just have to trust them. There are a bunch of tools, more than I'm going to go through in this session, that will help you be able to examine the emails and things. A good cloud-based system, a good transaction management or project-based system, and I'll give you some examples in a minute of some of them, will help you be able to review what's going on in all these files. And some of them even record the email related to the client in the program so that you don't need to worry about getting copied on things or blind copying people or all that. It'll be right where you need it. You have to be cloud-based to be effective. ClickUp is a free tool that is built for managing transactions, or managing projects rather. And it is very easy to use ClickUp to manage each listing and each buyer client and to assign tasks to one another. This is a collaborative platform. It's not real estate specific, so there's a little bit of nudging that needs to be done. But if you're on a budget, and actually even if you're not, ClickUp is just a fantastic tool. It's a great way to keep everything related to a transaction in one place, unless you invest in something that's a little bit more expensive. Follow Up Boss is made for real estate. This is in my opinion, the premium tool for teams and assistants to use. Everything's here. Your CRM, your marketing, follow-up programs, transaction management, everything can be in one. ClickUp is a good communication tool if you're on a budget and you're just kind of getting started in this world. Follow Up Boss, for a lot of people, can be a little pricey. I personally think it's a good investment for anybody who's working even by themselves, but certainly with a team. It's probably one of the best team systems I've seen for both a CRM and transaction processing client. And it allows you to be able to track what your assistant did versus what you did and vice versa. Also, workspace.google.com. Now, this is workspace.google.com is basically where your email and tools are created. So it's a very inexpensive program. The other option is Office 365. One thing I liked about workspace.google or Office 365, either one of those are fine, is most all of us are familiar with Gmail and Google. So this is comfortable on day one for you and your assistant. You can put your domain and your name in there. So let's say like my MatthewRathbun.com is my web domain. My email address is hello@MatthewRathbun.com. My assistant's email address can be whatever, but I'm going to manage all of our emails through here. I'm going to manage all of our tools, and anything and everything Google offers at a premium is available through the system. And I think it's like $6 a month per user or something. It's very inexpensive. What I like is that I control the email. I never want my assistant to use his or her personal email for my real estate business. If that person leaves, and they will, I want to be able to shut them out of that email account, but keep the content there and maybe forward it to my new assistant. Now, I know a lot of team leaders, a lot of agents use the email address of, administrator@yourname.com so that you can change it between each person. You have to deal with changing a name. One of the benefits of having an assistant is to show that person off. Like if I'm going on a listing, I can go, oh, my assistant will be in touch with you. My transaction coordinator will get in touch with you. They'll send that off to you. That's pretty bougie and fancy to have an assistant. When you minimize their role and make them less personable and just put admin, it sends a message to your consumer that you go through assistant so often you didn't even bother creating a name-based email account. So first initial, last name of your assistant at an email address with your domain name is very beneficial. It sends a much more professional image. And if that person does leave, you keep the email. You just forward that email address to the next person you hire. So anything new coming in isn't lost. You can archive it and import it in there. Bunch of options with this. Workspace.google.com also allows you to have other collaborative tools for video meetings, a lot of shared storage, all the Google Suite tools that are the upgraded paid version for a very low fee. I find it's very useful. If you're a Microsoft person, then Office 365 is very similar to this. It's similarly priced, and then you get the Office Suite, and you can still control username and email address, domains, things that way. I am a big Apple ecosystem fan, and I will just say there have emerged over the past several years. Apple has really focused on collaborative tools. There is even a Apple kind of workplace system of tools that you can subscribe to. So just a pitch for Apple. I don't make any money off of anything I've talked about in this session, but they are solid devices that have much longer longevity than your clone systems or your Microsoft systems. But it needs to be all or one. You and your assistant either need to be all Windows or all Apple based, because when you do the cross-platform, even with cloud-based systems, there's a lot of messiness. There's some just ease of use when everybody's on the same system, and generally Apple has a better ease of use for multiple users and collaboration and sharing, and they're coming out with new tools every day. Now, this is just a rundown. This is just kind of the beginning of some considerations here. Everything from why I need an assistant to training and preparing them, what tools to use. There's a lot more out there. I didn't even talk about things like Slack, Slack, which is another free tool for helping with communications and sharing documents and tying in all these other services. You can go crazy on this. I wanted to give you some simple steps to consider and some overarching concepts to consider when you're hiring an assistant. This is just the things to consider in the hiring process and the training process. It will really make your business grow. I have seen so many mid-level producers become mega producers in a quick time because first they got an assistant, then they got an inside salesperson, then maybe a marketing person, and then they added other licensees. I know a lot of agents, when they get crazy, I got a buyer agent I'm going to send buyer stuff to. that doesn't last very long. You don't know you're getting the same quality of work, and they're not there. That buyer person is just to give you a referral to go take your buyer clients. They're not really building and investing in your business as an assistant would. So hopefully this is a good start for you. And as always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me even after you've watched this. You can find me at MatthewRothman.com. I'm all over social, and I'd be happy for you to sign up for my newsletter, my website, or follow me on social media. I share ideas all the time. And again, I appreciate your time and interest in this topic.